Yes, Mr. Mayor, It grieves me to have to put that motion in, but looking at what's happened in the last year in the toilets, especially Pier Road, we appear to have lost £18,000 in revenue, which, as far as I'm concerned, the Finance Committee and the Council haven't actually come up with any positive recommendations to actually retrieve that money from Danpo or any other items. It appears that we put the price of the toilets up by 10p, and we are actually rewarding Danpo for terrible management, because they're going to get 5p of every 10p that is raised that way. And I just think that it is a ridiculous situation to find ourselves in, that we cannot get Danpo to actually return, or at least show us why there has been that downfall of what, 18,000 I believe it was. That's
basically what I would say.
Councillor, do you wish to speak?
No, Councillor Little said adequately said.
Thank you. At this point, I will ask Councillor Parsons to speak if you submitted an amendment.
Yes, and with an amendment that we delete all and replace with this council notes the Finance Policy General Purchase Committee regularly reviews all outside contracts as part of its master.
Sorry, Jonathan, can you speak up? I can't hear you. Sorry.
I move that we amend this motion by deleting all and replacing with council notes the Finance and Policy General Purchase Committee regularly reviews all outside contracts as part of its normal procedures.
Do we have a second there for that amendment? Councillor Knott. You wish to talk to the amendment, Councillor Knott?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I need to say that we do have a current contract with Danpo, which doesn't expire until 2027. And contracts for services have to be agreed by and signed by all parties to the contract. I do know that we have approached Danpo to review certain elements of the contract. They have declined. In the same way that Danpo have approached the Council to review certain elements of the contract, which would be a greater benefit to them, and that has also been declined. Both sides are quite within their rights to decline to discuss review, because the contract is still extant, and neither party is actually in breach of the contract. So we are, like it or not, stuck with the contract until 2027. That said, Mr. Mayor, it has to be said that it is not, shall we say, the best contract that could have been written for a contract with anyone for the maintenance of the toilets, but we have what we have and we are stuck with it until that time. So I think it would be pointless to attempt to renegotiate with Danpo, because they would just say, no, we're complying with the terms, you're complying with the terms, and off. They've also been offered the chance to walk away from the contract, and they refuse to do that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Mayor, the issue that has happened is that this council has lost money. And the thing is, it has to be rectified somewhere along the line. If we don't rectify it now, it'll happen next year or the year after until, like Councillor Knott said, until 27, till the contract runs out. Well, it's a very expensive contract when it comes to that. All we're saying is, let's have a look at where they've gone wrong, and let's see if they've rectified it. If there's too many people that going through the toilet free, then why haven't they put a counter on or something like that? They've done something. We shouldn't be running around after them because we're paying them. And why? The suggestion is we want the council to turn round and say, we've got these ideas, why can't we implement it to Danforth?
Thank you. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I would just like to say that I really take a little bit of offence, actually, Councillor Riddle. I was part of a working group that met with Danforth, and believe me, we did not go in that room and say, oh, hi boys, you're doing not too bad, you know, we have a few issues. We were extremely thorough. We went through everything. We are bound by that contract, so there are restrictions to what we can expect to achieve. However, as a result of those meetings, there has been substantial work carried out, and I do believe I'm correct in saying, Mr. Mayor, that there are measures being put in place to ensure that there are a counter or some form of implementation in there that we can keep a check on who's going in, and with the financial losses. We did raise that very, very strongly, I'll have you know. And apart short of saying someone's stealing it from you, there was no other avenue to go. So I really do think that it would be wise to check out what's been done before you accuse people of not doing a job on that group. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I take what you say, but at what point in this financial year did we pick up the fact that the credit card machine on the road wasn't bringing in any income compared to when you actually started negotiating with them? Because it was at the beginning of the financial year, and actually I believe it could well have run into the previous year. The credit card machine wasn't working. Because they said that actually there was a reduction in that previous year, which would account for why everything was going downhill with the amount of people in the toilets. But actually, that decrease in the previous year could well have been the fact that their credit card machine wasn't actually working previous to the beginning of this financial year. So I'd still like to know when this was actually first picked up by the council, that we knew there was a problem with that machine.
At the moment, Councillor, we are debating the amendments to your motion, which is note the finance policy and general purposes committee regularly reviews all outside contracts as part of its normal procedures.
I don't think we voted on that.
No, I said we are discussing that.
Sorry, Councillor Turner mentioned a meeting you had with Danforth, and in the minutes of one of the meetings way past, I read that the clerk chaired a meeting with Danforth. Is that correct? I'm sure it was. Are any of these two meetings? Have they been minutes?
This is not pertinent to this motion. As we're talking about, the motion is note the finance policy and general purposes committee regularly reviews all outside contracts.
My question is, were those...
No, the question needs to be in relation...
Yes, in relation to that,
motion.
were these two meetings that were taken, are they different meetings, or are they the same meeting? And were they taken...
Sorry, it's still not relevant.
Were they taken under the auspices of that committee?
It's not relevant to this motion.
That's it. You saying...
You're asking questions about how the finance committee has been operating in the past.
I want to know if these minutes from these meetings, presumably instigated by the finance committee, which reviews things, were they minuted? Is there any written record of it?
That is not relevant to this discussion.
Okay.
Thank you. Do we have any more councillors who wish to speak to the amendments? We know we have to vote on the amendment. So we have the proposer, Councillor Harston, seconder, Councillor Knott, which is note the finance policy and general purposes committee regularly reviews all outside contracts as part of its normal procedures, which would replace the motion submitted by Councillor Riddles and Councillor Abbott. So we'll take a vote on the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment, raise their hands. Against? Thank you. We now have an amendment that substantially abstain, sorry, thank you. I apologise. We now have a substantive motion which is now the amendment which needs to go to the vote. We have, that's correct? That is correct. So, no, we voted on the agreed amendment to the motion. Right. We now have to vote on the motion, which is note the Finance Policy and General Purposes Committee regularly reviews all outside contracts as part of its normal procedures. All those in favour of accepting this motion, raise their hands. Against? Thank you. The motion is carried.
Can you make point of order, please?
What is your point of order?
I can't say that that was actually a motion. All you're saying is that's what the Financial and General Purposes Committee does. Well, yes, it does do that, but that's not a motion.
We note that they will be doing it instead of your suggestion as a working group of 5 members.
That's not what the motion you've just said.
Well, the motion's been carried. Motion 4B, moved by Councillor Riddles and seconded by Councillor Abbott, that from the annual meeting 14th of May 2024, when the committees are first selected, no councillor can stay on any committee for more than 3 consecutive years, then cannot join again for 2 more years. If there are vacant positions after the first selection, then anyone can put their name forward to fill a position, however long they have been on the committee. Councillor Riddles, do you still wish to move this?
Yes, I do.
Councillor Abbott, do you still wish to second? Councillor Riddles, do you wish to speak to this?
Yes, please. I just think that this motion is very good for democracy. It gives everyone a fair chance of being on committees, and it moves everyone around committees, and I think it's just a lot better way of doing things than what we do at the moment.
Councillor Abbott, do you wish to speak?
No, I don't know.
We have received an amendment to this motion. Councillor Austin.
Thank you. I move that we amend this by deleting all and replacing with the council instructs the clerk to prepare a procedure to move to a better insurance system for amendments to the committee to be implemented from the 2025 annual general meeting.
Do we have a second then? Councillor Knott. Do you wish to speak to your motion? Sure.
No,
Any questions? Councillor Dodge. Oh, sorry. Councillor Knott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In anticipation of something like this cropping up before the annual meeting of the council next week, and the clerk's request for us to put ourselves forward for those committees on which we wanted to sit next year, I only put myself down for one committee, having already resigned from planning and licensing. The committee that I put myself down for is one that I have not sat on before. Therefore, I have released, if you like, 3 seats. Councillor Wilson has resigned and made available 5 seats. Asa Jones has resigned and made available 4 seats, a total of 12 seats that can be taken up. Now, this is the second attempt that has been made for certain councillors to get themselves on committees on seats which they were otherwise denied by ballot. So I suggest now that those councillors who are in favour of this motion get their act together and put their names down for those committees when they come up for as an item on the agenda next week at the annual meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. We were talking about the amendment which is moving to a preferential system for think Councillor Abbott has his hand up first.
Mr. Mayor, Council not made a statement there. I applied for committees before and obviously failed to get onto these committees. There was no fault from myself or the class. It was just one of those things that I've sailed by all year and not pestered and said, why have you not put my name down for this committee? I served them committees the term before. Council not wants to get it back right before he starts saying things that aren't true. I did apply and I did it in the correct procedure.
Councillor Nichols.
I find Councillor Knott's comments very offensive. This is nothing about me personally wanting to be on committees. It is about democracy.
Thank you. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually think the amendment makes a lot of sense because it gives everyone the opportunity to get on committees, and I do actually think I've spoken in this room before that I do think every member should be a member of committees. It's what you join council for. You want to do work for the benefit of this town. So with that in mind, I will be minded to support the amendment because I'm afraid that if you look a little bit closer at the amendment, the motion put forward by Councillor Riddles, it could exclude some members over the period of time. And I think it's not quite as fair as it would first appear to when you read it, whereas with the amendment that does give everybody an equal opportunity to get representation on these committees. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Smith.
Yeah, just a question about the amendment versus the written one. Is it legal to delete the motion? It's an amendment to the motion, not a deletion. But I don't understand how that can be legal.
The convention is that the amendment cannot simply negate the motion, i.e. simply reverse it, but it can propose changes to it.
I thought Councillor Harston said delete.
Well, sorry, what Councillor Harston was referring instead of it being that councillors are first selected, no councillors staying in the more than 3 consecutive years, he is saying that the procedure to move to a preference in this system for appointments to committee. So it's not that process, it's a different process, but it's still the fact that the committee structure.
Yeah, it's like obvious, and I thought that was my understanding was he said delete the motion. That's what I heard.
He was saying that his wording would supersede that motion, but it would still lead to a reorganisation of how committees were chosen.
Can you please just explain what you mean by preference system?
Some notes, the motion would be the card would come back to what was before, but from the notes that I've made, an example would be that in March, April, when the clerk sends out a list of people as members asking what they are, you would list them 1, 2, 3, 4, so someone could say number 1 finance, number 2 planning, number 3 and then when it comes to the AGM, all the number 1s are little first, and then all the number 2s are little first. But the specific procedure would be written up by the clerk and moved towards the council to agree.
It's the full council. The full council. It wasn't just members of the committee.
I think it is a system, I believe, has been introduced in other counties. Basically, you prioritise which committee you would like to go on.
I was wondering who had the preference to choose, to select or submit. I'm sorry, no. I mean, who would actually vote for those people? Would the committee have the preferential vote, or would the...
It would be full council.
Full council,
and
that's
if
fine.
they were subscribed. Councillor Riddle.
I would just like to remind Council that actually I put a very similar motion which you defeated in December, I believe it was. Very similar to that.
Councillor Brown.
Can I just say I will be supporting this amendment, mainly on the grounds of the original motion having problems of the length of tenure, turnover of experience, expertise, inactivity and non-appearance, all of which are major faults. So I will therefore be supporting the amendment.
Yeah, just one thing I point out. I was one of the 6 councillors that supported the motion before December, I think. We had a meeting next door to the call. Now, it was about, to me, fairness, the way that they picked subcommittees. Now, we had 5 speakers against us, but you smashed it off the wall that day. The 5th one was Councillor Conlon. It was probably the best of the 5 that night, they're all good. But she said, anybody who wants to come to a committee, come forward. If you're not there, come and sit in, and we will show you how to do it. You're all welcome. After that meeting, I was approached by 4 councillors, and they supported this. I was left in no doubt that this is true, you know, and I think this motion, and I know you're trying to make the council better in some ways, Chris, but I think this motion is wrong. We can't, everybody a chance to go on the subcommittee, and nobody did. Where were these people that came? I came on the 2 subcommittees, and I'm still on one of them, and I found them was very hard, and I was a bit disillusioned about something, so I pulled off. But the fact is, you're trying to stop willing people that are very good councillors. It seems that way to me, respectfully saying, doing a good job. There's plenty of places. Why muddy the waters? I listened to the motion there, the second the amendment. And that's surely a way of trying to make things fair. Will you give way here and consider the motion? Because
well, we will vote on the amendment anyway.
You know, when you do this, just point the clarity, because I listened to a couple of questions. You vote on the secondary motion,
the
amendment. What happens if you get say a 10-6, a majority? What happens to the original motion? Because I missed that answer.
If the amendment supersedes the original motion, if it's passed.
Right.
If it fails, the original motion stands.
That's what I thought. There was a bit of muddy water. I had no idea. Thank you for that clarification.
So, does anyone wish to speak to the amendment? So, we have an amendment which is that the clerk prepares a procedure to move to a preference list system for appointments to the committee to be implemented from the 2025 annual meeting.
Can we have a recorded vote then?
Certainly.
Thank you.
We have a recorded vote for the amendment. All those in favour of the amendment?
Turner, Heron, White, Austin, Dalrymple, Coghlan, Knock, Brown, Harrison.
Against?
Smith, Lehman, Riddles,
Abstentions? No, so
amendments.
the amendment is carried. Move to the vote on the amendment.
Vote on substantive.
We now need to move on to substantive. The substantive, which is the clerk prepares the procedure to move to a preference list system for appointments to the committee to be implemented on the 2025 annual meeting. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions?
Yes.
So the amendment is, that motion is carried. C, moved by Councillor Riddles and seconded by Councillor Abbott. Council advises and approves a mechanism to keep a record of all those present in the meeting in gallery building or council office who are on council business, including staff, contractors, councillors and visitors to Whitby Town Council at any time. Councillor Riddles, do you still wish to propose?
I think it's very important that we look after everybody who comes into this building on council business, and if there was a fire or anything, I think it's right that we should actually have a record of people who have actually come into the building, and the best way is to sign in and sign out. There was a comment that I got from the town clerk that he suggested it was that we had to do it for the museum as well. That might be a good idea, but at this point I think we should get the town council sorted out first, and then perhaps suggest that the Lytton Pool might do some sort of thing.
Councillor, do you wish to speak?
No, thanks.
Councillor Wilde?
Can I just ask you why you would want to do that? Just a straightforward question. What is the purpose of doing that?
Can I answer that question, Mr. Mayor?
Well, if you want to, yeah.
I went to Scarborough the other day and went to Northampton. And when you enter their council chambers, you have to sign in, or you get a badge to say you're a visitor. And this would be the same thing in this building, because if there's a fire, and the fire brigade comes, they need that register to make sure that they've got everybody out of the building.
Well, I should think that at Northampton, the building is like 10 times bigger than...
That's not the point. The point is that's the procedure.
Well, why are you bringing this up now?
Health and safety.
Health and safety, really?
We're not about what we want, it's about what is laid down. What we're trying to do. We're going forward into a new regime, sure, certainly, a new regime. So do we need to be up and running and efficient? That's what we're saying.
Can I just ask you who would do this?
Sorry?
Who would do it?
You would sign in when you came in.
Every visitor that comes to the art gallery.
No, we're talking about... No, we're talking about...
All people coming to visit the town council.
That's what the motion says.
And who would want to inspect this? But once it's done, what would happen to it? Every day, what would happen to it?
It's a record, it's a record for the fire service, the police service, for who's been in your building. If we lose a life, then what happens? There's no record on that.
So if there's no fire that week, do we just destroy the sheets? What do we do?
We do.
No, I'm asking a serious question. You're asking a serious question. So
I'll give you a serious answer, Councillor.
No, you can't.
I have.
So does that mean
You follow the procedure. You go and see the fire brigade, and you ask on the
totally.
In fact, we're getting into a question and answer session between councils, so...
But sorry, Mr. Mayor, but I just want to be clear. Are we going to be keeping piles and piles of papers for years and years and years? Are we breaching any sort of GDPR by taking people's details and not what they do? Are we going to destroy this every week when we have a very fire? What do we do?
I think that was being clarified in the approved mechanism. Councillor Moore, sorry.
Thank you very much. I think that this motion is, unless it includes the museum, which we can't do, then we can't apply it. I think that's the key issue here. I also don't know of any council, I know that you mentioned Northampton, but certainly in councils that I've been from, you don't sign into the building. You sign into a meeting when you get to your meeting, but you don't sign into a building. So I think there is a big issue with how it's presented. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, someone who has written safeguarding and health and safety policies for places like schools regarding people coming onto the premises for health and safety, safeguarding reasons and fire safety. I think this is not the right way to go. I would suggest that if you're, as Councillor Mulheron said, if you're only doing that little bit of the town council, it's pointless. You should be doing every building, the whole of the building. And as we've said, you can't really do the whole of the building because you can't expect every visitor who's going to come in, go upstairs, go downstairs, go to the loo, go to the cafe, etc., to sign in and tell you their plans. And equally, you cannot expect the staff to have to say, I'm going in now, I'm going out for my lunch, etc., etc. We are a grown-up organisation and we trust our grown-up staff to behave like grown-up staff. There will be processes in place within their personnel procedures to allow for instance, somebody who isn't doing their right amount of hours. I find that the whole of this concept, somewhat like Councillor Wild is saying, is possibly aiming to do something dressed up as doing something else, and I will not be voting for this. Thank you.
Councillor, there's no reason to sign in and out digital. You can use a laptop. There's no paper.
Can I just pick up on the point this Councillor was said? This actually says, you say it's for the council officers, but this actually says those present in the museum and gallery building or council office. So if I came into here, how would anyone record my presence? Who would I report to say I'm in the gallery?
But you're not coming, we're talking about, well,
Is that only council business?
yeah, you're not in council business if you were doing that. What I'm saying is, you go past that desk, you just sign in.
I've met people in the gallery in council business. So how would that be recorded? I understand what you're saying to council officers, but you said museum and gallery. And so it's a big building, anyone can walk in.
I think we have a responsibility to our staff and to our councillors that if there was a fire, that we could present a list to the fire brigade and say, well, we've got them all out. That would help the fire brigade saying, right, we know we don't have to start searching for people because we know they're not in the building.
So how would we deal with the fire brigade with the number of visitors in the gallery who don't have to report their presence?
I was just saying that initially we should do it for the town council, and then you can move on to that, and if there's another way of doing that for the rest of the museum, so be it. But I think it's important that we do it for our staff and our councillors. I think it's a health and safety thing, and it should be done.
As far as I'm aware, we do sign in.
Chair, there are two signing books, one for staff and one that we maintain for contractors who are working on site. But there's nothing that covers either members of council or members of the public.
Can I ask the class, do you burn them every week? Do you destroy them, the literature, the sign, are you getting rid of it like Council Wild wants?
The signing e-book doesn't contain any personal information that is decipherable out of it. It's based on initials. So it's meaningful within the company. There's no personal information per se in there.
As I can see, there was two objections to this. One, what about the museum staff? Well, I can assure you, all the museum staff sign in and out.
Just keep that.
Not the visitors, we're talking staff. We're talking staff. No, yeah, okay, visitors to the museum are escorted.
Visitors and visitors.
Yeah, we're not talking about the members of the public visitors.
They would need to be recorded as well.
No, you're reading too much into it. I think you're making it too far. And as for... Sorry, I can't hear the councillors contrary to themselves. As for other locations that don't do it, the previous 20 years of my working life, I was in and out of council offices, factories, schools, you name it, I went in and out of them, and every single time I had to sign in and I had to sign out. If I went for lunch, I had to sign out and then I signed back in. Everywhere. So I must really review that.
Not in this system, not as this is worded as it stands.
people who work in the museum and art gallery sign in. My wife is an assistant curator and has never signed in. Never.
Well, there was a
Neither does the lady who she works with. Now, this matter of signing and having a record of people in the building, I do agree there is a considerable amount of merit in it. And it was raised some years ago. It was well before Michael came to be our flyer. And the comment then was that it was difficult to get councillors to conform to a rule that they sign in. And it was difficult then, it would be difficult now, more difficult now, because we have 2 points of access. One from the door at the back and one from here. So where are you going to keep the record? Where are you going to keep it? Very, very one councillor once failing to sign the book and the whole thing becomes just one councillor fails to do it and it all falls apart. So you've got to be very careful what sort of system you want to impose. Although I do agree that it has considerable merit.
Anyone else wish to speak? No, we will stick with one councillor. Sorry? That's the fine. So, Councillor Nichols, do you wish to speak on the motion before we go to the vote?
Has to be
Oh, sorry, the amendments.
What amendment?
Oh, yes. Hold on.
Can you hear me?
Go.
Yes. I move that we replace this with the following week. Note that council keeps a record of attendance and visitors and contractors.
We have a second for that amendment. Councillor White. Does anyone wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Brown.
Can I just say that this sounds quite sensible, because I would have thought in a building like this, what you need are fire wardens. So if we're talking about fire and concerns over a fire warden will be allocated an area and they will ensure that the area is empty before they leave the building. So the need to sign in and out for fire purposes is null and void, because it wouldn't work. So therefore I am happy to support this amendment.
Any other speakers to the amendment?
Can I just clarify that means all public in the building as well?
Yeah, as far as I'm aware,
Everybody.
if you have a building like this and there's a fire alarm, you have allocated people who are fire wardens, or I would expect them to have, who will each have an area of that they have to ensure is clear, and they point out their sticks and they all go out and they've got additional training and they continue with that training. And that's how you deal with getting people out of a building when you don't know how many visitors, staff, etc. are in the building.
Is that a separate motion then?
No, I'm saying that because that's how I would expect this building to be dealt with due to fire, because that's what you said you were concerned about, I am supporting the amendment, because the amendment basically said you don't need your motion, because it doesn't solve the problem that you're thinking it's going to solve.
Well, why don't you make your fire warden an amendment?
Thank you, Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could I just ask for clarification? Do we have contractors signing now, or is that not something that we do?
Chairman, you have a contractor signing in an handbook.
So is the amendment just relating to contractors? I can't hear properly down here, I'm sorry, but when you're reading it out, you're like that, so it's dyslexic.
So it is that the council keeps a record of attendance of visitors and contractors.
which is existing practice.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will agree it does make sense, and I think the original motion, it's just difficult to impose when we can't do the whole of the building. At least contractors and visitors to the council, we will know who's in the remote parts of the building, let's say. Thank you.
So that would mean then that any contractor or visitor going to the council office, their presence would be recorded in a book.
Yes.
Thank you.
Will we sign that though when they leave us in the fire?
Yes, so if you sign in and you sign out, so you have a record of who's on site. That's the normal process. And then you sign in there. So we have that amendment. Does anyone wish to speak to that amendment before we go to a vote on the amendment?
We know that council keeps a record of attendance of visitors and contractors.
Council.
So is that going to be a word to the office?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, when you say visitors, does that mean dignitaries from other councils, or are they classed as visitors? Anybody but our councillors here are visitors?
I would actually say if I go to the council office, I am visiting the council office because it is not my place of work. I would be a visitor to the council office.
So that referring to
anyone who is not working in the council office, who is going to the council office on business or to see people, a record of them being there would be kept for the duration while they're there.
As an example, it is my understanding that, for instance, when someone from Danbury comes here to discuss the Danbury contract, they sign in as a visitor. If someone from British Gas comes here to fiddle around with the gas works, they sign in as a contractor. That is my understanding of common practice.
Right, we have that amendment. We'll put the amendment to the vote. Proposed by Councillor Parsons, seconded by Councillor Martin, I believe. All those in favour of the amendment that the council keeps a record of attendance and visitors and contractors. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Abstentions? Councillor Abbott, Councillor Smith. Okay. Councillor Riddles, do you wish to speak to this? Because that's now a substantive motion. Do you wish to speak to the motion before we put it to the vote? Okay, we'll now vote on the substantive motion that the council keeps a record of attendance of visitors and contractors. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Thank you. Motion D, moved by Councillor Abbott and seconded by Councillor Riddles. That Mr. Clark prepared a quarterly report for each cost centre showing the quarterly costs and cumulative totals for the financial year to date, and to include proportionate staffing costs to each set of operational cost centres. Councillor Abbott, do you still wish to move?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like you to withdraw my motion on D and E, please, from the agenda.
Right.
And deal with motion F.
But it hasn't been seconded, can we withdraw?
Yes.
Okay, the motion is withdrawn.
Right. We'll deal with motion F.
We will move. We've got E as well. Oh, E and F. Sorry, I apologise, sorry. Just before we know that Councillor Abbott has withdrawn the motion D and withdrawn the motion E, and we move on to motion F. Moved by Councillor Abbott, seconded by Councillor Riddles. The Council instructs the task force of 3 people to recommend revisions to the constitution of the Panic Art Gallery and Whitby Museum Trust and the Panic Art Custodian Charity 523442 to explain how these work and to prevent confusion and to report in September. Just to confirm, Councillor, you wish to move with this one? Councillor Riddle, do you wish to support?
Yes.
Councillor, do you wish to speak?
Yes, I do, sir.
Thank you.
The setup of the museum and the art gallery is very confusing for most people. And the museum is obviously, the artifacts are responsible by the Little Bill, and the building is responsible, or shall we say, the trustees. We've had all this work done to the building, but we've never had a trustees meeting regarding the permission to do this, the funding to do it, and the way forward that we're going to do it. And what I'm suggesting is that we need to have more information regarding how the trust works for the council, not for the Little Trust. They're already set up for what we do and what we're responsible for. And do we have to have regular meetings for anything that gets done in the building? Who get permission from the whole of the trustees? And it is a trustees thing rather than a council thing. It's a trustees meeting, not a council meeting. That's basically it.
Thank you. Could I just ask a question? I'm not being disrespectful, but do you believe that there is anyone within the council who has the necessary legal expertise to actually be able to give a competent recommended revisions to the constitutions of the Museum Trust and the Panic Park Charity? Because I know I do not have that necessary expertise, and with respect, I'm not sure if any other councillors on this committee have that expertise. Isn't this a legal requirement? It's required for legal institutions, not legal. I could be wrong, but
Mr. Mayor, I don't want to put the council to expense of getting solicitors and barristers in or anything like that. It's just a point of I'm asking you, should we have council trustee meetings, trustees, not council meetings, and discuss the building itself, the way forward that we're going with the building, the way the money's coming from, as a trust, not as a council, because it's nothing to do with the council, it's to do with the trust, the charity trust.
I understand that, but that is not what your motion states. You're saying a task force of 3 people
That's to find out how we're supposed to do it.
recommend revisions to the constitutions of the Panic Park Gallery, Whitby Museum Trust and the Panic Park Custodian Charity. So
Find out if we've got anybody who's advising on it.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I can understand the reasoning behind this motion, but it is a very complex and complicated matter. How the art gallery, the Little Phil and the council have to work together, and we are bound by wills and deeds going back over 100 years, which cannot actually be altered. What you can do is clarify and make amendments to the terms of reference, which themselves are based upon the documents that govern how the thing works. We did at the start of last year, I believe, Mr. Mayor, have a considerable work done on the terms of reference to bring them more up to date with current requirements and to afford some clarification to the members of the JMC at that time. It is very complicated, and as the Mayor said, it's very difficult to get your head around. I've got a basic grasp of it, but no more, and it takes a long time to get it. The only person who really understands it is one of the trustees of the Little Phil, and he's a barrister who deals in these matters, and he really is an expert. And I think Michael will agree that he has been of considerable help, particularly to you behind the scenes in formulating matters that are put to the JMC for consideration. We did in fact have an item on the agenda some 4 or 5 months ago now, possibly more than that, where we were to discuss the total amount of expenditure needed for this building to bring it into line, if you like, and do all the necessary works needed to do it. And they came to over £104,000. Unfortunately, we spent so much of that meeting on other matters of a less trivial nature, if you like. By the time it came to this, we had about 10 minutes left of the meeting, and it just had to go through on and off. So if people don't understand, then I'm sorry, but it was because we were running out of time and getting near to 10 to 9 at that meeting was. I can't honestly, Mr. Mayor, remember when that meeting was, and I apologise for that, but I'm sure other members will, particularly those serving at the JMC, will know what I'm talking about.
Councillor Harston, you may wish to submit an amendment.
Yes, I recommend this. The note that council solicitors are currently reviewing documents relating to Whitby Town Council, Pan Art Gallery, Whitby Music Trust and Pan Art Pub Trust to include clarification and explanation of structures.
Sorry, one last question. They still having this.
They are currently
doing this work.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's a total misunderstanding from the members here of what they do as a trust or trustee and what they do as councillors. And I do think that the trustees, as that body, aren't informed, and it's not minutes they'll notice because we don't have the meetings. That's my observations on this. But I did a lot of work on this about 7 or 8 years ago. And it is a difficult definition between trustee and the councillor. But I think we need to get the council members here need to get an understanding of the 2 different roles that there are.
But it is the council as a corporate body that is the trustee.
Yeah.
That's one of the complications.
As a corporate body, we are members of that. We are trustees in our own right. On our several alignments. So
that's one of the difficulties.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can explain it.
Mr. Mayor,
Sorry.
as Councillor Smith and Councillor Locke said, I don't want to be the trustee of this gallery or the museum. I can't get out of it because it's part of the remit of being a councillor. I don't want to be a trustee. I think, and personally, we're going to have more meetings, and the more meetings and the more rigmarole that comes out of it, it's going to be a burden because there's other things going on. But it has to be addressed. What are we? Today we're council. We're arguing about a trustees. Trustees, when we all change in that, we talk about we're all trustees. We're arguing about councilmen. We shouldn't be doing that. We should be doing the business that we are there for. Trustees.
It is a very difficult decision to.
This may or may not clarify things, but it might just help to explain where the JMC and the work done there has led and why the council solicitors are still picking over some of the interrelationships between these things. What is very clear from the 1948 High Court judgment and the 1953 lease under which the Literary and Philosophical Society are the tenants of the museum is that the management of the building and manages the building. The perhaps ill-named Art Gallery and Whitby Museum Trust manages the collection of the gallery and the operation of the gallery within the building, but the gallery itself, the trust, is itself a tenant of the town council. The park charity or custodian owns the ground of the park and the ground under the building, so that when the lease was extended about 20 years ago to build the extension, that was actually the granting of a revision to the lease by the park charity. What has been discovered in discussion with the solicitors is that because at the time that wasn't as well documented as it should have been, that has been described as the Gallery and the Museum Trust on some of the documentation. They're currently working to correct that, and they're working on the updates to the lease specifically with regard to the library, which is ongoing and is a discussion between our solicitors and the Whitby Hills solicitors. Once that is resolved, I am promised a simple diagram or explanation to try and address some of these issues, but they are complicated, and the operation of trusts is what's left over from what the High Court said in 1948, which is taken as definitive and is immutable, as things stand. The other point is that for both trusts, it is the council as a corporate body that is the trustee. Therefore, you act collectively as the council as the trustee. That does not mean any individual councillor is a trustee in their own right. That's important in terms of liability, and some of the reasons that trust doesn't need to be an incorporated organisation, the same as the Phil had to move from being a simple charity to being a CIA. So that's also subject to operational clarity, but I think I have recognised, the JMC has recognised, in discussion with the solicitors, I think they recognise and are likely to give us clarity over possibly things that rely on descriptions of what the trusts were that stem from the 1920s, what the High Court judgment of 1948 says, what may or may not have happened in 1974 to transfer these things, and ultimately what's been forgotten or remembered over time. But it is, I would stress, it is complicated enough to require a legal opinion, because there's a risk that by seeking to clarify, it could destabilise the operation of the lease and or the adherence to the 1948 court judgment and the Little Bill for certain in their own right and also through the GMC are very protective of that arrangement, and that has to be recognised because the GMC is a committee of the council, and therefore it has the right to recommend and to respect the council to operate within its scheme delegation, which is again set out in the lease.
I think what you're saying is they can't do anything that will risk doing damage to the original lease or doing harm to the original lease. I think that's the expression, isn't it?
I think so, that's correct. The Councillor Knock is right, that it needs to be done sensitively to understand that because the two trusts that the council controls and the council's own position regarding the management of the building is enshrined in a lease, in a court case, and in the original will. All of those things have to be taken together. What's very clear is that 60-year-old judgment and a 60-year-old lease do not necessarily reflect modern times and modern practice, but we need skilled advice to be able to unpick that. And I think even a working group of 3 members or more will need proper advice to understand the ramifications of any changes.
So we do have an amendment. We notice the council solicitors are currently reviewing documents relating to the town council Panic Art Gallery, Whitby Museum Trust, and the Panic Art Trust to include clarification and explanation of the structure to Whitby Town Council, so that we get a response back, which may then go, which will meet the aims of your motion, because it's to prevent confusion to report in September, but instead of 3 lay people, we are asking the solicitors to report back on that. That is the amendment. Do we have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Knott. Before we vote, does anyone else wish to talk to the amendment? Councillor Nichols.
Just a point. It concerns me that, as far as I'm aware, we don't, as a charity, we have to have a constitution. And I don't believe that we actually have a constitution, because the will is not a constitution. It's not the constitution. We haven't got a constitution.
Councillor
Just going back to the amendment, Mr. Mayor, I think that we're all agreeable in this room that we need some expert advice on this, and I think as things are already going through a legal process, as has been highlighted with the amendment, it makes sense for that to get clarification through that point and maybe bring a lot more understanding to all of us in this room, because parts of what you were saying were as clear as mud to me, and I would like to think I've got a little bit of intelligence, but I would really need a lot more time to sit and digest what you were saying.
Are you seconding the council?
I will second the amendment.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the amendment? Councillor Chapman.
Just a very quick comment. Having been on this committee for a long time, as many of the Catholics, you cannot use the sledgehammer to crack a nut with this. We have had fallout over the years, absolutely unbelievable. We now are working in partnership. We get on with the museum, with everyone concerned. We have had a little in the past with certain personalities causing trouble. So I'm very, very wary of doing anything that's going to upset the status quo.
By getting legal advice, we should certainly go on there.
Well, I really want to accept that.
So, can we move to the votes then?
Could I have could the town clerk just say, have we got a constitution? Because I believe you think that the will is a
that is
constitution.
not part of this motion, and in fact, it would be something that the solicitors would be looking at.
Chair, just to clarify that, in terms of the original registration of the Charities Commission, or for a will trust, the will forms the constitution in their definition, which isn't the same as a trust that would be founded today, but it does satisfy the definition of the constitution for a will trust of the age of the Panic Art Gallery and the Museum Trust and of the Panic Art Jet.
Right. We're meant to modernise it in 78 or whenever the Charity Commission, they changed their regulations, and we don't seem to have changed our constitution, which we were meant to do, I believe.
Well, the discussion, I think, but in a way, that's why we need the solicitors to come back with an update on how they view our operating. So we have the amendment.
Can I ask just one more quick question, Chair? Are we going forward as trustees, or are we going forward as a council?
This is a council meeting.
That's right.
So, we know that the council solicitors are currently reviewing documents relating to Whitby Town Council, Panic Art Gallery, Whitby Museum Trust and Panic Art Trust to include clarification and explanation of structures and reports to the council. All those in favour? Against? Abstentions? Right, do we now move to substantive? Do you wish to comment, Councillor, before we move to substantive vote?
We're making headway. We're going to be understanding what's going on then.
We move to substantive vote. Note the council solicitors are currently reviewing documents relating to Whitby Town Council, Panic Art Gallery, Whitby Museum Trust and Panic Art Trust to include clarification and explanation of structures to Whitby Town Council. All those those in favour? Against? Abstentions? No.
The appointment of the three people who brought forward with it from the council is when are we going to...
That's now been superseded by this.
Right.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. There being no other business, I declare the council meeting closed. Thank you.
Let's